Right then, today if I've got my streaming set up finally correctly, we're going to be looking at various versions of Tempest. And we're going to start with the original one which I've often described as a prawn on a pair of underpants version for the Atari VCS, and you can see why I call it that, because it looks like there's a prawn at the crotch area of a pair of underpants. Let's fire the thing up and have a go. So the first level isn't actually too bad. If you can ignore how ugly and flickery everything is, you can kind of play it. The flippers look like they're made out of Lego, oops, and I don't know if there's a super zapper, I haven't found one yet. But it's not terribly bad. That's the end of a level, the underpants just flash to let you know you've got through. But this is where it starts to get bad, because the enemies fire at you, and the colour of the enemy bullets changes as they fire, and often it's black on black, and so you just find yourself stopping and dying for no apparent reason. And as you can see, the death animation itself is pretty poorly communicated. You just kind of stop and go clunk. And I haven't really been able to get much beyond level 2 for that very reason. Let's have another go. I mean, you can tell that the poor lady who was given the task of making this game was given an impossible task. I mean, Tempest is a game which is pretty much defined by its geometry, and the Atari VCS, by its very nature, simply could not attempt in any way, shape or form to reproduce that geometry. Oh. Okay, let's see if I can get through level 2. No, clunk. No. There are more enemies on the higher levels. You can see them in the attract mode. I'll let it play the attract mode when I've died again here, so that's probably the only way you're going to get to see it. There, that's it, I'm dead. Let's let the attract mode run. But, no, I mean, the lady, her name was Carla Moninsky, who was given the task of producing Tempest on the Atari VCS, and I think to try and replicate the geometry in any way was just, I mean, forget it. There's absolutely no way you could do it. And it wasn't that she wasn't a good programmer. She also made Warlords, which is one of the Atari VCS's best and most classic titles. But it's just, they gave her an impossible mission, basically. So, although we may laugh at it and call it prawn on a pair of underpants, because it does look like that. I mean, look at it. I think she did the best she could. So anyway, that's that for that version. You probably, or you can look it up in the emulators. You may want to look at it as a curiosity, but I doubt very much that you want to play it for more than 30 seconds. Okay, now I'm looking at Tempest by BB Design. This is for the Sinclair ZX Spectrum. Now, even though this is probably the least Tempesty looking version, well, apart from the prawns and the underpants, it's actually one of my favourites, because I mean, what they've done is basically just said, bugger it, we're not even going to attempt to reproduce the geometry of Tempest, and they've concentrated on reproducing the gameplay as well as they can. And I think this is a method which might have suited the VCS version better if they just said, well, fuck it, you know, we can't do those vectors. Let's just distill the essence of the game down into its most basic components and present it in a way that is best suited to the hardware. Then this vertical approach might have worked well. But anyway, let's have a look. Press 1 for one player. Oh, oops, we're in the right window. 1 for one player. Okay, there we go. Starting screen 01. Press enter. I think it's G and H. So there's my claw. The one button is fire. As you can see, basically it's Tempesty. The flippers are coming up the lanes. I'm firing down them. Then you zoom off. Admittedly, it's only a 2D zoom, but I think it works quite effectively. And all the recognisable enemies are in there. You've got spikers, spinners, you've got pulsars later on. You can see the spikers are doing their thing there. You've got a super zapper. I'm not sure what happened there. I'm sure I died to something. I really quite like this. I think it's quite charming in its own way. Oh, oh, you see, I mean, actually avoiding the spikes as you go down. It's quite realistic. It does feel quite a bit like Tempest. I mean, Tempest, when you think about it, is a very simple game. It could even be considered to be a simplified Space Invaders if you deconstruct it down to its most basic components, which is what this does. Look at what's killing me there, perhaps it's those things. You've got Super Zapper. We'll get pulsars in a minute. Even the sound effects aren't too bad for a Spectrum. They're kind of, well, they're still farting, but they're quite appropriate farting. There we go, we've got a pulsar at the back there. There we are, game over. But no, I think that's quite good. I quite like that. It's the least Tempest looking apart from the underpants, but it's actually one of the better ones to play, and the gameplay is recognisably Tempest, despite the way it looks. And as I said, on the VCS, I think that could have worked, because you could have used all kind of horizontal raster tricks to get more enemies on the screen and that kind of thing. And I think it would have been far more effective, really, than what they tried to do with the underpants, which, let's face it, didn't really work and must have given that poor lady a headache. Anyway, I've got more Tempest now to come on the Spectrum, so give me just a minute to change programs and I'll be back. Right, okay, now I'm looking at what seems to be an official version of Tempest by Electric Dreams, who I believe they spin off from Quicksilver. Also on the Spectrum, as you can see, they've taken a much more traditional approach here in trying to replicate the geometry, and they've had a mixed success, really. I mean, let's have a little play with it so we can figure out the keys. Right, press enter to start to play. Oh well, never mind. Player 1, that's me. So let's begin. Now the web looks okay. It has rather more sectors than I remember Tempest webs having. Appears a bit static, as all webs do that aren't really Tempest 2000 types that shift around. But you can see immediately the major problem with the Spectrum is that because of the way the screen works, it's very difficult to mix colours on the Spectrum. You tend to get what was called attribute clash, where you couldn't have like a white vector and a blue enemy or whatever. And so what some software houses did was just ignore that entirely and have everything in monochrome. And as you can see, it means a lot of the time you can hardly see what's going on. There's just a few pixels changing down the bottom of the web there, and every now and again something explodes. And apart from that, the implementation isn't too bad. The little claw scuttles about on the top okay. The enemies, they're not really closely based on real Tempest enemies. I mean, there are things that kind of flip. There are stars that come up which I don't think correspond to anything. I mean, perhaps fuse balls would be the closest thing, but they don't really behave like fuse balls. It's alright, but it's also a bit slow. Sound effects are just basically this purposeful farting throughout. But it's a Spectrum. What can you expect? Let's play a few levels and see if it gets any better. So yes, oh, what's that? Something shooting around the bottom now. I think they've more or less just decided to make up their own enemies at this point and haven't really tried to replicate any of the real Tempest types. I don't recall any enemy in Tempest which does that kind of frantic scuttling around the middle there. What's that? Oh, there's I don't know where the SUPERZAPPER is. Oh, is it Z? Z? Yeah, there we are. That's kind of nice. I like the way the SUPERZAPPER goes down the level in a visible wave like that, in a way it's kind of like what I've done in TXK. When you trigger a smart bomb and you can see the little origin of the smart bomb shooting down the level. This is alright, but it doesn't particularly feel challenging yet. I haven't really felt like I'm going to lose a life at any time. The real trouble with this version is just the fact that A, you've got very low resolution, and B, you've got stuff just exclusive ordered onto the web down there, and so all you see is like a bunch of vaguely changing pixels. It's very difficult to see what exactly is going on. And I must say, for all it makes a closer attempt to replicate Tempest geometry, it doesn't feel as Tempesty as the much more simple version that I played just now. Oh, there's my smart bomb. That takes a little while to respond. How many letters? It's got so far too many lanes. It's got what? 4 on each load there. It's 16, 17, 19. It's got like 32 lanes or something ridiculous. I mean, no Tempest web in existence ever had 32 lanes. Now it's getting a bit choppy as well, you can see. Yeah, okay, well, I think I've seen enough of this. It's kind of okay. I applaud them for attempting to do, at least replicate the geometry in some way. It's kind of hard to die. I don't think I've died yet. I haven't really been paying attention. But it's not such a good Tempest game as the previous version I looked at that was entirely 2D. So let's knock this on the head for now, and we'll carry on with some more 8-bit Tempests in a minute. Right, okay, now we're going to be looking at Tempest, also on the Spectrum by Microgen. Now, here they've tried to do the same thing as the first version I looked at and simplify the game and just do it in 2D. But rather than trying to replicate the feel of Tempest, what they've done is produce something which is an absolute pile of complete and utter bollocks, which they obviously just created to try and cash in on the name of Tempest. It is absolutely dreadful. I mean, their own blurb for the game says, an excellent version of an arcade game should be used only by those who want to wear out their laser fingers and the keyboard at the same time. So that sounds very promising, doesn't it? But this is just the attract mode running. I think you can see from the attract mode that we really shouldn't be expecting anything that bears any kind of relationship to Tempest at all, despite the names of the enemies there. So let's see if we can get this abortion to work. Tempest game 02. I don't know why it's Tempest game 02, but here we go. Let's have skill level 5 then, because press any key. Here I am. So I'm now a pink spaceship, and there's asteroids coming down, and what relation this has to Tempest, I really don't know. There are those things that have blue beams out in front of them. There's something which leaves a yellow line. That's the closest thing to an actual Tempest enemy that I've seen. I think they are kind of implying that should be like a spiker. But, I mean, this is terrible. I mean, it's just terrible in every way. I mean, the graphics are terrible, the gameplay is terrible, the sound effects are terrible. It's just completely and utterly awful. And the way in which, the fact that they describe it in such glowing terms that it is in fact a pile of wank. I really hated that. I hated that back in the day. I hate it when I see people do it, when they just want to cash in on something and so just create something that's obviously crap, praise it to the skies in their own bloody adverts, and just fob it off on people. It's dishonest, it's nasty. I hated it back in the day and I hate it today, and I hate it when people do that. It gets my goat, it really does. I mean, look at this. Imagine if you paid like £5 or something for it, you'd be well pissed off. So yeah, Microgen, you were a bunch of wankers for releasing this. It's nothing like Tempest. I think that's probably enough said about that. Right, here we are, off the Spectrum now, and onto the lovely, lovely BBC Micro. And what we've got here first is, I think this is Superior Software's version of Tempest. Whether it is officially licensed, I don't know. But let's have a dig in and see how it goes. So I think I press space to start up. And it's alright. I mean, obviously, pixels the size of house bricks there, but I mean, it's a shame that so many of the 8-bit Tempest copped out of doing the web zoom and just did something silly like move the claw down into the web like that. Oops, I died. It's all a bit jerky. It's not bad though. Oh, is that it for level 2? Okay, level 2 a bit short there. Don't know where the Super Zapper is. Haven't really needed to use it yet. Oh, we've got some spikes. And is that yeah, we've got a tanker and some spikes. So it's trying at least to replicate the traditional enemies of Tempest. And we're down the spike. Pathetic zoom into the middle. Okay. So it's not blatantly terrible. This actually looks quite a lot like a real Tempest level. I've done this one quite well. It's just low res, but I think I prefer the low res to the monochrome Spectrum version where you couldn't really see what was going on in the middle. I'd rather have a slightly lower resolution and a few more colours of the level. Level design seems fairly reasonable. This level wasn't actually an arcade Tempest, but it seems to work fairly well. You can see the spiker working there. Oh, not sure what killed me there. I think sometimes the enemy bullets aren't that well signalled because they're just little triangles of yellow dots. Avoid spikes. Okay, this feels like it doesn't have enough lanes. The lanes are too huge on this level. Oh, there we are, game over. So, not bad really. Okay, if you're a posh BBC Micro type, then you might have been pleased with that, I suppose. Oh, it does say copyright Atari 1982, so I guess it was an official version. Yeah, alright, I'd give it probably 6 or 7 out of 10 if I had to rate it, I suppose. However, the next thing I'll show you will show you what could have been done on the BBC Micro regarding Tempest. Anyway, let me clear this one out and I'll show you that one now. Okay, now this is a demo that was never actually released. It was made by a guy called Nick Pelling. His code name, which he used to use for all his BBC Micro work, was Orlando, and he did some of the better arcade conversions on that system. And as you can see, his Tempest is really excellent. I mean, it would have been excellent if it had ever been finished. I mean, the web actually zooms really nicely in a manner which is very close to the arcade game. The gameplay itself is fluid. This demo, I think it's only got the first level as far as I know. I don't think I've ever got beyond it. Try and play the demo. But as you can see, everything's fast and fluid. The gameplay itself, I'm sure, would have been excellent. But look at that, it's a lovely zoom. It's just a shame this was never actually finished in any shape, size or forms. I think this probably would have taken the biscuit as the best 8-bit version of Tempest on any system. Strange fact about Orlando is that he went on to become an expert on the Voynich manuscript of all things, and I actually saw him on telly the other day. There was some program on Sky late at night about the Voynich manuscript. I thought I'd watch it. Nick Pelling popped up as the expert, but in my mind he'll always be an expert coder for his excellent BBC Micro conversions of arcade games, and I think this would have been his best if only he'd finished it. But anyway, this is all the demo does. But very impressive, I am sure you will agree. Right, this is the Amstrad version of the same one I showed you earlier on the Spectrum. Now, I'm not going to stay long here in Amstrad land because it smells. But let's take a look at this. It comes out a bit better on the Amstrad. Don't know why they play that awful music. Okay, there it's gone. There it's got AY83910 sound effects. As you can see, it's better already because the Amstrad was actually able to have a 4-colour mode in the same resolution as the Spectrum's monochrome mode, so you can actually see the enemies, which really helps matters a lot. Also, it seems to be a bit faster right from the start, so it's a bit more challenging from the word go than the Specky version. Still not particularly faithfully replicating Tempest, but it's a bit more of a snappy experience than the Specky one. I'm actually feeling a bit threatened by those asterisks. Normally conversions onto the Amstrad from the Spectrum were pretty uniformly terrible. You would often just have half the resolution and pixels the size of house bricks. So it's quite nice to see this one is actually better on the Amstrad. Let's face it, there's not many things you could say are better on the Amstrad. So I suppose this version of Tempest may actually have reduced the trauma of being an Amstrad owner for some people. Does the smart bomb work? Yeah, there we go. But anyway, I'm not going to spend too long on it since we've already seen it on the Spectrum. I'm actually going to say, in this case, it's better on the Amstrad, and you don't often hear that. Right, let's head over to the Commodore 64 for probably the most surreal moment in this little rundown of the various versions of Tempest. As you can see there, it says load Tempest, it says searching for Tempest, it says found Tempest, loading. Now you'd think there would be a version of Tempest loaded. I'm not quite sure what the fuck this is. Okay. You get this random bleeping in the background, there's something moving around there. That yellow thing, I mean it's yellow and it's kind of claw shaped, I would think maybe that should be us. I can kind of make it fire something, one of those. I can't move it, I've tried pressing every key to move it. I found the key to crash the program. I can fire one of those and that sometimes turns into some kind of square thing, one of those, and then I can fire one of these at it and it blows up. Meanwhile, those green spiders come down, and there's still that weird random bleeping going on, and I still can't move, and there's a brown thing coming to get me. I just have no idea what the fuck is going on here, basically, or what relation it has to Tempest whatsoever. Apart from the fact that the claw is yellow. It's like some surreal, abstract work of modern art, that's the only way I can describe it. And all I can really say about this is Clifford Ramshaw, Mark Ramshaw and Eric Harbour's What the Fuck? Oh, it's game over. Nog een keer. Yes, I think I have to agree with that. Nog een keer indeed. Next on the Commodore 64 we have Axis Assassin. Now this was made by Electronic Arts back in the days before they became, well, Electronic Arts really. And it's quite a peculiar thing. It looks kind of like Tempest, but it doesn't really play the same. You've got a pointy ship at the top, but it can go down into the web, and you basically have to destroy various things manipulate the web, but you don't really seem to have to go back and forth very much. When that big spider appears, then you have to shoot the big spider, and then you go on to the next level. It's odd. It's like they wanted to have the look of Tempest, but didn't really feel like implementing Tempesty gameplay. It doesn't play a lot like Tempest at all. You spend pretty much all your time hanging around in the middle of the web, and then as soon as that spidery thing appears, you just shoot him and off you go to the next one. Perhaps I'm missing some nuances of it, I don't know. I never played it enough to really understand it well back in the day. Spidery thing, shoot it, off you go. Oh, it seems to have a decent number of different levels. I find that I tend to get my ship backwards half the time. Why can't I do that? Here we are. Let's have another go. Come on, let's put a space in. Come on then. Come on! I've got to press fire button. Awkward combination of keyboard and the joystick controls there. Let's try again. Well, it suffers in a way that a lot of 8-bit Tempest did from giant pixels, but there's not much you can do about that on the Commodore 64 really. I don't get much of a feel of a Tempesty kind of game really. I don't know what all this red crap in the lanes is all about. I just don't like that at all really. It doesn't feel like Tempest, it doesn't feel like anything really. It doesn't even feel like a handful of wet mashed potato, to be honest. I think Electronic Arts tried to represent themselves as producing sort of artistic works of excellence back then, and I have to say that's a pile of wank. I can't understand why they even thought that was such a fantastic thing to release. It's a triumph of technique over gameplay really. Anyway, so yes, bit rubbish that one. I think we'll pass on that. Right, Commodore 64 again. This is Genesis. This is by the rather excellently named Kevin Furry. Excellent. So this is quite a strange game. It doesn't look that much like Tempest to start with, but it plays kind of in a similar kind of way. Right, so here we go. I'm that scorpion thing. I can touch that block when it's green, and I can collect it. The baddies come up from the bottom. Oh dear, and they make holes basically, and you have to fetch the green block and drop it in the holes. It's quite hard. It's not helped by the fact that instead of just going left and right, you actually have to aim your joystick in the direction you want to go. So it's a bit awkward. When the block is red, you can't pick it up. It's green now, I can pick it up and drop it back into the holes to repair them. I don't know why there's no sound. Oh, the block has a tendency to turn red on you for no apparent reason. Extra score for 100 shots. My accuracy, I'm sure, is completely rubbish. So, yeah, it's kind of alright. It's... I think we just have to basically admit the Commodore 64 didn't really have a good version of Tempest. Oh, wave over, I got to the end. Fantastic! Get it when it's green. Shoot the bad guys before they get to the top. So I can fill in a hole there. There's another one. I can fill in that hole. Shoot those bad guys. It's green. Oh, it's gone red. It does go back to green. There we are. Green. Fill in the hole. Bad guy at the top. I'm not sure. That's green. Fill in the hole. Wave over. I'm getting the hang of it now. They did a version of this on the 8-bit Atari as well. It was probably a bit better than this. Nicer colours. And they even tried to do a version. You can collect up multiple bricks. They tried to do a version for the Atari VCS, and the Atari VCS version was done by Amiga of all people, but it was never actually released. And it didn't look too bad, and probably again would have been a better approach for trying to do a Tempest style game on the VCS than the Underpants and Prawn job. Yes, so not bad, better than Axis Assassin, I would say, but not particularly brilliant. And the poor old Commodore 64 never really had a good version of Tempest to speak of. Okay, let's move on. I think the 8-bit Atari was better served, as we shall find out next. Here we are on the 8-bit Atari with, this is the Atari 5200 version of Tempest. This was never actually released, and this is in fact an early prototype version I've got here, so it's not even complete. But as you can see, I think it would have been quite a nice release. This level select here is very reminiscent of the actual Tempest coin-op machine. Let's pick a level and go in. I'll start on level 0 there. If I can. Let's press start, which is start on this element. There it is. And it's fairly chunky, but it's very nice. I mean, the flippers flip nicely. There's no collision detection, I don't think, in this version, so you can't really judge how the gameplay would have been, but I suspect it would have been very nice. In fact, I think there's a later version of this ROM around where you can actually play the whole game, but I grovelled around online and I couldn't find it, so you're just going to have to see the prototype at the moment. I think that it would have been a very nice addition to the 5200 library. Oh, you can shoot things, just not the limits at the top. It's a bit fast on this joystick control, but no. I think this would have been very nice. Anyway, probably the closest thing you will see to real Tempest on an 8-bit machine. It's very good, and I, in fact, wish they'd finished it back in the day. I'm sure I would have loved it. Anyway, I shall stop with that. Back with the 8-bit Atari. This is Livewire by Tom Hudson, published by Analog Computing. It's not too bad. Let's give it a go. Here I am. I'm an asterisky thing at the top. It's a bit slow, but for an analog release it's not too bad. I've got to see a bit more speed and a bit more positive collision detection, perhaps. It feels a little bit challenge free at times, but the variety of shapes in the web are quite nice. Okay. Not brilliant, but smart bomb, spacebar. Yes, it's a spectacular smart bomb when it does the job. Yes, I applaud the variety of web shapes, but there could perhaps have been more variety in the types of enemy that were attacking you. So yes, Livewire, not too bad, not that brilliant. Probably wouldn't have spent any money on it, but there you go. Right, now this is a rare and peculiar thing. I've never even heard of this until the other day. This is actually, if you can believe it, it's an 8-bit version of Tempest 2000. If you listen a bit, you'll hear that that's actually the chiptune version of the title tune from Tempest 2000. That there really is. and you know it's pretty good in its own bizarre little way. Let's try it and see. Let's start. I think there we are. Oops. It has got power-ups. Took me a while to recognise what they were. Those things are the. We've got a smart one. Press the joystick up or something. Come on. I'll play my own bloody game. Fucking hell. For fuck's sake. Well, I'm doing fantastic here. Let's try that again. For fuck's sake. Yeah, come on, yeah. I purchased the cartridge. Keep forgetting there's power-ups. Where's the bloody smart bomb? It's even got an AI jaw. Well, it's not really an AI jaw, it's just this thing that follows you. Oh, there it is. There is. Oh, for fuck's sake. Also, it resets the power-ups every time you die. It shouldn't do that. And it doesn't do a proper zoom. For fuck's sake. Is not fully effective. I see it's kind of comedy that she tried to do an 8-bit version of Tempest 2000. I'm fucking shit at it, man. Purchase the cartridge. Okay. One more try, see if we can actually get it. Fucking hell! Ace! There we are, look, gunner droid. It just goes round and shoots, but still. Yay! Anyway, there you go. So yes, bizarre thing to end the 8-bit ones on. There's a version of Tempest 2000 on the 8-bit Atari. I never thought I'd see that. But there we go. Well, I'm going to look at one 16-bit version of Tempest before I finish this up. But then that'll be it for now, because otherwise I would have been rambling on about Tempest for altogether too long. So let's say goodbye to 8-bit Tempest 2000 for now. Finally, I'm going to be looking at a Tempest on the Atari ST, the official Atari version. Can you believe it? So press fire, I think, to start. Look, oh, this is terrible. No Tempest enemy that I know of behaves like that red flipper that comes swirling out from the middle there. The flippers don't actually flip. I mean, guys, the clue is in the name. It's got the rubbish zoom into the middle by just dragging the claw down to the bottom. They could have done that better. Come on, it's a 16-bit machine. They're just these stupid spiralling flippers that come out. What the fuck are they? The thing is, when this is Atari's official version, they should have had access at the very least to videos of how the real machine looked, how the enemies actually worked, what they actually did. And yet they came out with this where it basically looks like whoever was programming it had no clue about how Tempest actually plays. Plus the sound effects sound like somebody falling downstairs whilst holding 100 rolls of aluminium foil. What annoys me is that somebody at Atari must have looked at this and signed off on it, said, yeah, that will represent our Tempest name absolutely perfectly on the Atari ST. Here, have some money for it. I think this just goes to show that the moment you start making remakes for the purpose of making money rather than making a remake because you actually want to produce a loving reproduction or an extension of a much beloved old game, that's where it all goes off the rails, really. I'm sure some people made money on this, but nobody was bloody satisfied with the game they got. I'm quite certain of that. This is terrible. The fact that this is the official Atari Tempest, fairly powerful 16-bit machine, is just bloody shameful. It's a disgrace. Game over. I should think it's bloody game over. I think that's quite enough of that. Right, you can keep your bloody 16-bit Tempest. In fact, I'm done for today. I mean, look, I think they put more effort into the bloody title screen than they did into the actual game. Bloody Atari 1989, shame on you. That was terrible.